today I am joined by Susanna Brandon. Hi, Susanna.
Hi, Steph.
How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Really good.
Thanks for joining me. We are going to explore the AP Connect project that you were involved in last year. And so we'll just start with your experience of that and sort of how you got into it, and then what you did as part of that project. So over to you.
Yeah. Okay, it seems a really, really long time ago that it all started, actually. I can't believe it's only 12 months. So much has happened. So maybe 6 months before I'd taken the post of ATP. You may remember that. You were on my interview panel, Steph.
Yes, I was. Fabulous.
And actually, the first year of the AP Connect project was underway. So I caught kind of the last 6 months of the first project, which was great. But what I was really conscious of was that I'd missed the beginning and the context of the whole project. And I really wanted to revisit that. So when we were given the opportunity last year to apply, I could go on either the Constellation B, which was the project that that had been running, or Constellation C, which was then the next stage. But I really, really wanted to start from the beginning and experience and just close that whole circle. So I applied with. There was I think the application was a small scale project to work with a minimum of 5 people, which was really easy because we'd actually changed one of the subjects at college, one of the qualifications, not subjects. So I was a floristry tutor, and we had a mix of tutors, full, part-time, hourly paid, and using the VLE at different capacities, really. So it seemed really obvious to choose that as a project, really, to work together, to get some standardization, to upskill a little bit more in the digital skills, and to bring that all together so that obviously we were getting a better experience together, working closer, and ultimately the students were getting a better and more enriched experience because they were getting a similar standard from each tutor. So that was the initial project idea. In reality, as these things often do, I went along to Birmingham. There were I was invited to 3 face-to-face meetings. So the initial one was the introduction. So this was completely new to me. So I was on the train first thing on Friday morning down to Birmingham. Absolutely had imposter syndrome, like you wouldn't believe. Walked into the hotel, lovely welcome, and what happened that day was just incredible. So I met the most incredible group of people. Obviously Lou and Poonam were facilitating on the day. Fantastic. The first thing Lou said, which will never leave me, was, "This is a group of people that have come together because we're not jaded by FE." And it kind of blew my mind a little bit, to be honest. It was that's exactly why I'm here.
Yeah, I think one of the magical things about the advanced practitioner role, and what in whatever context, whatever title people give that, and there are now lots of different titles and lots of different capacities that kind of run in different colleges, which is interesting in itself, how this role in colleges is kind of evolving and changing, but can have very different edges, if you like, in different places, but ultimately they are often people who are I say still, but some people never were jaded, but still engaged in wanting to make a difference to education, to support other teachers, to make sure that students are having the best experience. But there's something about that real sense of wanting to work with others and bring people together, that collaboration, that unity thing, which is kind of at the core of me ultimately, that I've always loved about those roles and those people who get those roles and have those roles. So yeah, when you all come together in a space, it is pretty magical, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is. So during the day, we learned some different strategies. Had my first go at the thinking environment, which
Right.
I've never heard of before, and it just, what it's done is just kind of open so many different avenues for different ideas, and it's just been fantastic. So I went along with my little project, which seemed very small at the end of the day. When I went, it was like, oh, I'm not sure if I've bitten off more than I can chew. And by the end of the day, I was like, I can take on the world. And I remember thinking, I was sat on the train on the way back. I can't wait to get back to, get back to college, get back to the area, and just share it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And luckily, well, not actually, I'm saying look had nothing to do with it. I've got I had a great relationship with my line manager and a great rapport, and said, look, this is the stuff that we've been doing. This is what I've learned in one day. This is the impact it's had on me. I need to get this rippling out. What can we do? So it went from the little project, which was still the project, and it still ran, and that was great. But what actually happened was we took on sort of elements of the day and kind of reinvented our staff meeting time so that we could take out of the equation the announcements. So how much time do we waste, coming in,
Yeah.
nothing is really being said while there's lots of noise. And it always used to frustrate me because everybody's busy, and I totally get that. Yeah. So that was where I said, can we not just do an email or a newsletter? And that's where the newsletter idea started originally. So we did announcements from the line manager, the assistant heads, a bit of an update if there were any good news stories, anything great happening around the area, and a bit of a well-being. And that went out on a Wednesday, every Wednesday, with the caveat that instead of the meeting to discuss the announcements, we'd have half an hour and we'd introduce the idea of our own action research, supported experiment, whatever terminology you use. And it was great. And we used it in that thinking environment kind of space.
Yeah.
And it went really, really well. It was just, and I'm talking about tutors, some of them that have been there double the length of time that I have, and I've seen lots of different training come in and go out and be in favour and be out of favour, and it was just because it was so about them and about us, it just happened, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought was why that was different for them. But this, and you're part of the Joy FE group, which is just amazing. And we are seeing this huge sort of welcome across the country, if you like, of this positive injection into education. What we're trying to get out is a message about, let's go back to the heart of education, let's go back to the joy of it, and let's think about how we really value people. And we've used the thinking environment throughout in terms of the ideas rooms that we run in the week, and that's always seen this space where people feel heard, they feel valued. And I think where then you've created that space for teachers to say, well, this is what I want to develop, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I want to think about. But you're giving them sort of that structured space to do that. And like you say, it was about them, but it was also about the us, that team, that collective, that community. There's something really important in the sense of community. And I think sometimes in cultures, in colleges, not just colleges, businesses, we can talk about community and we can talk about team, but we haven't mastered how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's a bit more of a feeling. It's not a thing. It's not like a to-do.
It's funny you should say that, actually, because I've probably been thinking about it much more recently than I ever have done before. People say, well, why will people listen to you?
Yeah.
And it's a really hard one, isn't it? You know, when you and I think it's because I get involved. I believe that we can all make a difference. I really believe that, you know, nobody wants to be on their own and wants to be working and wants to be stressed out. And I know from personal experience that when you get a group of people together, even if there's some resistance initially, eventually, when you've had that space and that wriggle room, that, you know, some really honest conversations come about. And I think it's really important to kind of harness that and find more spaces. And I think that's one of the really great things that have come from lockdown, actually, because it's opened up the possibility of, you know, holding meetings, holding discussions, and not having to worry about the logistics. So, you know, you say about the JFE group, we come from all over the country. I think we had some from Europe last week, you know, that had just come in at a particular time and just have a conversation for an hour, and there's no travel involved. You know, you can have your brew or your glass of wine, and I'm not saying that that's appropriate college scenario, but
I would tell everyone
it definitely. But there is definitely an ease about it, and I think because we're all learning together and we're all getting stronger together, and I include students in that as well. They're seeing us learning as well, and we are learning from them, because a lot of them are more tech savvy than we are. And, you know, and it's just been a really kind of beautiful coming together and development. And I think now we've done that, we need to keep hold of it and find out how we can then streamline it.
Yeah, and just jump into like something that I've been thinking about recently, and I've had a few conversations with different people. I think there's something about how we help people to keep going in this direction and not feel too worried and be trying to get back to what we've always known. Because there is that risk. There is the risk that people are not sure how to build online community. They're not sure if it'll be the same. So people are now saying, well, how can we get back to what we always did? And actually, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, nothing worked, because there was a lot of things that worked, and there's a lot of positive stuff that worked over, you know, that we celebrate in FE every year, you know, with things like AOC Do Love Our Colleges and all of that sort of thing. But ultimately, you know, we've seen workloads and teachers and well-being constantly being discussed as something that is a real challenge for people. And I think where people have realised that online spaces do save you the travel time, it saves you some stuff. There are challenges that go with it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But there are benefits that potentially could really help us.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? It's the balance.
Yes.
And it's the taking what didn't work that has actually worked a little bit better online, and keeping that and not being coaxed back to the, what does Jen call it, go backery. we're not doing it. We're not doing that. So, you know, it's not about getting a coach load coming over from the outreach centres to come into, you know, main campus on a Friday morning, and they're all stressed out and have students trying to contact them. You know, an hour online, discuss, and it also avoids all that interruption and just general kind of general background noise that can sometimes be really distracting. So I find that's been useful.
Definitely, and I think I would encourage people to explore the thinking environment a bit more, but we'll talk about that actually in a bit more detail, because I was asking you a little bit about, you know, what has influenced your practice. So in the time that you've been advanced practitioner and then I think teacher learning coach, those roles have kind of, there's been changes.
There's been changes this year. So we've gone from advanced teaching practitioners in department, and there are now a couple of teaching and learning coaches that have got significantly more remission from teaching hours to across college. So I mean that's been really great as well. However, the role was initiated maybe 3 or 4 weeks before we were locked down, so that was that was a challenge too. But I mean, because we had kind of had that foundation already, and with, you know, some of the things that had, you know, influenced certainly my practice with the thinking environment and the communities of practice, and we've got a fantastic digital team, then all this has kind of evolved beautifully actually online, and really given us a really strong foundation for more of a blended learning model, whether it's required or not for safety, you know, due to COVID.
And I think that's where we're reflecting on this time, reflecting on the role. I mean, the last 5 years, as you know, I've been involved in leading those teams, whether it be without line management, it's been leadership rather than management of, but over the last couple of years in particular, you know, there's been that real evaluation of the role, what's effective, what's not effective, what contributes to significant buy-in of teachers to that role. And it does always come back to this people-centered approach.
Definitely. I think that's the thing that has definitely being taken on board the most is the fact that, you know, we've very much kind of set our target at inclusive. You know, we are not delivering CPD to you. You are not you know, you're not just a participant. I can't think of the terminology now. I'm trying to.
Oh, I know. I think I know. Like, they're not someone just to observe what's going on. It's not done to them.
Not done to. So it's not even the fact that you're engaging with the CPD either. It's that you're part of it and you're sharing and you're helping shape that.
Yeah, definitely. And this is
so
where
there's a few things we've tried that have seemed to have been really successful. We've obviously we're promoting the action research again, and that's something that I'm really keen to really get across the whole college, because I just think we had such wonderful results and some really interesting results as well from even the, you know, the smallest idea with the biggest impact, you know, changing the times of breaks, changing fonts to aid memory, some maths and English starters that encouraged more vocational links, and some really good, and then some more kind of techie stuff. So we have the VR but everything as valuable as the next, and definitely something to share and something that somebody else can then go away and, you know, I can come in and say, right, today I'm going to do CPD about, or we can all get together in a room and what have you done? And then, so instead of it being one voice, it's 25.
Because we all learn from each other, don't we?
That's it.
So, and that building that communities of practice, again, coming back to that sense of like togetherness and community is really important for people. I mean,
and I think we're really, really good at doing that with the students as well. We're really good at directing the students and giving them the spaces to work together, to collaborate. But then as teachers, we kind of revert to, right, you tell me what to do. And I think it's getting kind of over that barrier, really.
It's really interesting, and I think there's a lot of policy and procedure that can feel very done to. And I think understanding where policy and procedure comes from really helps people to understand why a certain thing is happening. But for me, there's always professional development in particular. I've always been really passionate about like how we do that, and I've always been really passionate about evidence-based approaches, and the evidence shows you that there needs to be some autonomy, like structured autonomy, so that people can engage in the professional development that's important to them. That doesn't mean everybody goes away and just does their own thing. It's very much like structured, scaffolded, people are supported. And when you get that pitch right with the right support and the right amount of autonomy, like you said, it really works. So I'm interested in things that you might have read or any sort of theory that has influenced your practice as a teaching and learning coach.
Okay, so as I said, I'd never heard about the thinking environment before. So I've done a lot of reading with the Nancy Klein theory and different blogs and things that people have written relating to the thinking environment. I've been reading a lot of educational things about curriculum this year in particular, looking at Steiner schools and Forest schools and just different styles of teaching and learning, which is really interesting when you start looking at kind of the pros and cons of the different, and you know, if you could just take elements of each, it would and just combine them all, it would be wonderful. But it, you know, that's just hypothetical, idealistic, but you know, it is really interesting, isn't it? And then I'm also on a middle leaders through the Landex, because obviously I work at a land-based college. So I've been reading a lot of leadership books as well, and I've been reading particularly The Multiplier Effect by Andy Coe. I love anything by Andy Coe. I love his positive psychology, his podcasts, all the books.
For people who don't know, he has a company called Art of Brilliance, doesn't he? And they're just fabulous.
He if you listen to his podcast, he's you read quite a few positive psychology books or listen to podcasts, and they tend to come from people who have hit rock bottom and then developed and, you know, and seen the light. Generally speaking, I know I'm being very, very general. He came at it from completely the opposite. While he was studying, he saw the positives from the negatives and kind of flipped it, and was the first person to ever get a PhD in positive psychology. So he calls himself the Doctor of Happiness, and it's just brilliant. I love his philosophy, and the thing that's linking to the thinking environment. I was saying to you earlier, I was probably last week old when I realised that listening is an anagram of silence. Listen is an anagram of silence. And I was just like, oh. So I'd know,
I love that. And there is that thing in the thinking environment where, you know, there's especially like the ideas room on a Wednesday evening, you don't have to come with an idea, you can be willing to come and listen. And one of the principles of the thinking environment is that your best thinking happens when someone is listening. And it is that discipline of listening and actively listening. And I think a lot of people don't do it. And once you're conditioned to the thinking environment, like I said, I've been doing it for like 20 weeks, I think it is. And it's just been how we've ran things. It isn't, you know, it wasn't sort of like a regimented thing. It's just, this is what we're doing. It's quite disciplined and we're going to see what happens. Once you've done that so much, when you're in a normal meeting, it feels weird now that people just talk over each other and you don't actually get space to think. So I love actually what you did in the project, where you took out some of the announcements and notices, which is just, as you said, it's noise. It feels like noise at times. And you've switched it ultimately to where people felt like they had a voice and they were being listened to, and it was valuable time. Even though initially I know what people would have said, which is, we don't have time for this, you know. But I love that you've made that happen, and loved that you've made it work. So we've talked a little bit about theory and what's influenced your practice. What about the things that you've been trialing over time? What have you done in practice that you've sort of tweaked and changed and adapted over time to help you do what you do in your job?
Okay, so initially that sort of came organically, but then when that had such a great impact and it did work, it was right, how can we make that better? So at the beginning of the academic year this year, we started with the professional values. Okay, so everybody looked at the professional values at the start of the year, and we said we'd do it 3 times. Again, similarly to the AP Connect, so you can reflect on where you're at. So it was actually up to, so everybody looked the first time, and if you've not seen it, it goes from 1 to 6.
Is that are they the ETF?
Yeah,
that's the ETF standard.
So with 1 being requires improvement, to 6 being, I feel really, really confident and I'm all over this. So you go down all the different values, and then it's up to you whether you pick something that you're really, really strong. I mean, ideally it was both. One that you're really strong at, identifying why you're strong and how you can share that with somebody else. Or where you feel you need some support, and how can you then create your own kind of little action research to improve that. And that was kind of the starting point. So it gave it, like you said before, a little bit more structure, rather than waiting for something to go wrong in the classroom and then you can fix it. It was kind of, where do I feel like I'm at? So again, it was completely person focused. And then again, we came together every 2 weeks and we'd do a round. What have you read, heard, listened to that's had an impact? Then pairs usually work best because it was quite a big department. So we do paired thinking, and always with a different pair. So that was really great as well, because quite often, even in group meetings, you don't get the opportunity to listen and find out anything of interest about it. It's like just background noise. So it was kind of team building at the same time, and it was really great. I remember we were talking about kind of marginal gains the first time I tried it, and we did the round, and some of the tutors, they were a pretty tough crowd, I remember when I first took the role, and I used to absolutely dread going and standing, because I'd think, if I don't get it right to them, then I've lost the crowd. It was like a comedian, really. And I said, what? So how are you feeling now? What's your freshest thought now, as we came into the meeting? And they went, looks like it's going to be rubbish, but in not as quite as polite. And then we did the pairs, and then we came together at the end, and the noise was just brilliant. It was just like everyone was focused, and I looked around and I just remember feeling like, this is just amazing. Everybody is completely engaged. There is nobody, to them, there is nobody else in the room apart from the person they are speaking to. And it was just such a wonderful feeling. And then we did the round at the end, and I'm like, right, how are you feeling now? So we got some like tired, hungry, interested, blah, blah, blah. And I got to him and I said, okay, he went, we're all right, that.
Yeah, those are the wins.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. And
Oh,
then, you know, and that kind of carried on. So from that, because I think that just, it improved their confidence, it improved my confidence, like through the roof. I was a completely different kind of different person, different in my delivery, different in, you know, I'm sure you can testify to that. You know, in the first ATP meetings, I'd very much be a listener and you know, and contribute when prompted. Whereas now I'm excited. I can't wait to try something new. It's, you know, it's really ignited something really, and all I want to do is make other people feel like that, because it's just the best feeling.
Oh, that's so nice. I love that. I love that, because it is about, again, I can't get away from it at the minute. It's in every place. It's in every conversation that I have. It's about people. It's about helping people to feel valued. It's about people having a voice, feeling heard. And I loved that when you said when they were in those conversations, they felt like they just didn't know that anyone else was in the room, because they're in those pairs. They're just so listened to. And actually, it doesn't take too much training to get people into that mindset. It's very disciplined. It's a very disciplined process. And Lou often says, you know, people might think it's soft and fluffy.
I think that's where people really get it wrong. I think she's really right. You in it, and you've got to be in it and committed. Yeah. But when you are, it's an absolute breeze, and it's a joy.
Yeah.
When you go in half-hearted, or think you know what it is without really listening to, or you know, or following the rules, that's when it goes completely west. And thankfully that's not happened to me, because, well, I've not let it, but I've only done it in with a group of people that I've got a really strong rapport with anyway, that I would feel comfortable. And I think this is an important point as well, that I will feel comfortable if it didn't work, and I go, oh well, we'll put that down to experience, you know, I messed up, and that will be all right. I will be okay with that. Now, that's not to say that I could do that with anybody without, you know, without support myself. But so I think there's definitely something in that, building rapport before you go into that kind of really structured.
And I've got no doubt whatsoever that with that practice you would absolutely nail it with any team, because you're very people-centered and you understand what the thinking environment is trying to do. So I'm really,
and I think well that's it, and I think it comes from experience as well. I think if you felt the benefit from anything, so, you know, I practice mindfulness, and I share that with anybody that wants to, you know, me to share it with them, and I don't ram it down anyone's throat, but if anybody asks me, I'm really happy to share my experiences of that. And I think that if I put myself open, and if something has made me feel great, or has helped me overcome something, then if somebody else is going through that, then I'm more than, you know, I would love them to experience that benefit.
If it's when you experience something, you're able to talk about the benefits of it, aren't you?
Authentically.
And I think that's where we're encouraging anybody to kind of come in on a Wednesday evening and see how thinking environment works, and what a sort of phenomenal space that has been. But ultimately now this is where we're encouraging people to explore the thinking environment as a different way of doing meetings and a different way of building community as we go into the new academic year. And there's so many APs, teacher learning coaches, that have been part of AP Connect, that have seen and experienced the power of it when they come on the training days, that have then felt compelled to go away and do something with it. So we've already heard a couple of stories about people doing things with thinking environment, and I'm sure we'll probably hear more over this next few months in particular. But AP3 is about to start going into next year, so people can register their interest online, which is super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully we'll see you there as well. And but yeah, I want to just say thanks for joining me today. It's been great to catch up and just get into some of those things that have really influenced you and your development as an advanced practitioner. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for asking me, Steph. It's been great.
You're welcome. Take care, Susanna.
Bye.
Bye.